We'll just give it one more minute, folks, and then we'll get started. Thanks for waiting. All right, wonderful. It's 11:05 Pacific time, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining today's webinar. We're going to be talking about designing and implementing a Facebook campaign. Before we get started, just a couple of admin items. As always, if you have any questions as I'm going through the materials, please feel free to go ahead and use either the chat or the Q&A functionality, or raise your hand. I'll keep an eye on each of those. So if you do have a question, please feel free to go ahead and ask it as we go through the materials. We've got about an hour scheduled. I think we'll likely use about 45 minutes today. What I'm going to do is similar to last week. If you joined us for our Google AdWords webinar, I'll spend a little bit of time going through how you really think about Facebook marketing strategy. And then we'll spend a good amount of time on the Facebook platform, walking through how you put an actual campaign up and run them, and how to think about testing on Facebook. So for today, what we're going to start off with is an overview of Facebook marketing. What is it? Why do we use it? What does it look like? Then we'll talk a little bit about how to design an actual Facebook marketing strategy. And then lastly, as I mentioned, we'll go ahead and go into the Facebook platform and actually chat about and walk through an example of how you implement a Facebook marketing campaign. And then lastly, I'll save plenty of time for questions, but again, as always, please feel free to go ahead and ask questions as I'm going through the materials as we chat today. So let's start off with a little bit about kind of Facebook. Everybody's pretty familiar with Facebook as a platform. It's become probably the most ubiquitous marketing platform at this point for companies. And the primary reason there is just given is the wide reach that Facebook has. So if you think about the amount of time consumers are spending on social media, that number continues to tick up. Although there are a lot of other social media platforms out there that you can think about advertising on, I think Facebook is a really good one to start with for really three reasons. Number one, from a cost perspective, it is actually relatively cost effective, i.e. affordable when you think about marketing there. Number two, they have really good targeting tools that we'll talk more about, but effectively what that means is it gives you the ability to be hyper specific in who you want seeing your ad. And then number three, because they've been around for a while, the process to actually create and set up and run ads is pretty well defined. As I mentioned, the big real takeaway for Facebook is that it enables you to market to a broad set of customers at affordable pricing. And when you think about, is Facebook the right platform for me as I think about expanding my insurance practice? I think the key question to ask yourself is, if you're looking to expand your reach and really want to start to better understand and test potential customer segments, and I'll talk more about what I mean by when I say customer segments, but if you're really looking to test and expand your reach, Facebook is likely going to be a good platform for you to be thinking about and to actively start testing. So last week, if you were able to join us for our webinar last Tuesday, we talked a lot about Google AdWords. And if you didn't have the chance to join us, I'll provide a little bit of context in thinking about how Google AdWords and Facebook are different and really what the key advantages are for Facebook, because that's our focus today. But if we take a step back and think about Google AdWords is a marketing platform that's available through Google, the search engine, where you're able to market to specific customers based on what they are searching for in Google. Now, what that really means and the implication of that is we have the ability to gauge customer intent with Google AdWords. And what do I mean by that? With Google, our entire marketing strategy is going to be based off of what someone is looking for on Google in their search bar, right? So if you're looking for things that indicate you are interested in a product, or you're looking for insurance quotes, or you're looking to compare very specific insurance options, that likely is going to signal to us that there's a lot of intent there, right? So Google AdWords is the right platform when you want to segment or create strategies based on intent. Now, social is a cheaper way to target a much broader audience. So the key differentiator here is that you are able to really target and segment based on geographies, certain interests, certain behavior, which Google does not allow you to do. So the big difference here is, do we want to gauge intent, or do we really want to start thinking about which parts of the population are going to be most interested in the services that we offer? So we're not necessarily going to be able to gauge intent as clearly on Facebook, but we are going to be able to really understand what we call customer segmentation, or put simply, what does our potential customer actually look like? And that is really the power of social marketing in general, but really when we think about Facebook. The other thing I want to add about Facebook and social media campaigns, and we're not going to talk about this much today, but we do have a webinar coming up in a few weeks, is retargeting. So we're going to talk about very basically how you start and run a new Facebook campaign focused on kind of generating new leads. But there's additional functionality that comes with Facebook that can actually be incredibly valuable when you're thinking about what's called retargeting, or taking consumers that may have seen your site before and you want to remind them of who you are and what you offer. Facebook is a really great platform to be able to retarget. That way, when someone looks at your site and 5 days later they're scrolling through Facebook one day, they'll see an ad and it will probably remind them of the fact that they visited you 5 days ago. The other thing we won't, again, talk a lot about today, but I do want to put on everybody's radar, is Facebook has really great capabilities to be able to, as I mentioned, segment, right? So we can build lists of people that we want to see our ad based on their interests, but we can actually take it even a step further. And this is where Facebook can be very, very powerful. But Facebook has the ability to create something called a lookalike audience. And what that really means is you could take your entire book of customers and their email addresses, load that into Facebook, and ask Facebook to create what is called a lookalike audience. So Facebook will take your client book, it'll take their Facebook profiles, a lot of their interests, where they're based, their demographic data, and it will start to market to customers that look similar to yours. Now, I think that can be an incredibly powerful tool for us as we think about building our insurance practices, because taking customers that we've already signed up and trying to find people that look very similar to them tell us that we likely would be successful there. And so, again, we'll talk more about that in a few weeks during our retargeting and remarketing webinar. But that is something I wanted to mention to everybody. If you're interested in learning more about that, by the way, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you figure out how you actually go about doing that and what you would need to do if you wanted to build a lookalike audience based on your existing customer base. So this This slide is talking a little bit about how we actually build our funnel. So again, if you joined us last week for Google AdWords, a quick reminder that marketing and the funnel doesn't actually end at putting a marketing campaign live. You really have to think about the entire customer journey and experience. You want to make sure that when you find a client or a potential client online and they're seeing an ad of yours, that the message that you are communicating in that ad is flowing through every future step of your funnel, right? What message are they seeing on Facebook? What are they clicking on? What page are they directed to? What am I asking to them to do on that page? What value am I giving them on that page? And ultimately, if I get their email address or set up an appointment, how do we actually think about turning that into a client and making that final sale? So, um, when we think about Facebook, this digital marketing funnel is a little bit different. The steps are similar, but different than what we talked about with Google AdWords. And it really starts with clearly defining which kind of lead you want to target. Now, with Facebook, that's incredibly important because if you remember, what I mentioned here is that Facebook gives us the ability to really clearly segment and target certain types of individuals. And so we really want to have a very clear hypothesis or idea of who is it that we want to be marketing to and targeting with Facebook, right? Whereas with AdWords, we thought about what kind of lead do we want? The implication of that was we have to think about gauging their intent with what they're looking for. With Facebook, we really want to think about what do our potential clients look like? Who do we think is the right person here, right? As an example, if you're based in Texas and you want to expand your geographic footprint, you may target very specific geographies. And because you are offering life insurance, you're going to be looking for people that are probably new parents, right? That's a big time when customers are starting to think about life insurance when they've had their first child. And so you're going to say, my lead is somebody who is likely in their, 30 to 40 years old, just had their first child, and is now thinking about life insurance in the greater San Antonio area. Um, Defining with that level of specificity is going to help us target those customers when we actually get to building out our Facebook campaign. Now, the second step, once we've defined who it is we have to ask ourselves, what do we think they're going to be looking for? So, one of the things you really want to think about is what sort of mindset is a customer in when they're on Facebook. Now, oftentimes people are on Facebook. Um, Sometimes getting helpful content, but oftentimes, depending on your customer base, they may just be swiping through um, between meetings or in the evening. And so you really have to ask yourself if we use our same customer example, if you are 30 to 40 years old, you just had a kid and you're thinking about potential life insurance, which is you've heard a lot of people tell you you need life insurance now. What do we think that person's looking for on Facebook? Maybe it's their kid is awake at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so they're swiping through Facebook as they try to put their baby back to sleep. Maybe that is the message that's resonating, right? Something that really catches their eye. And so if we think about what those leads are looking for and what kind of headspace they're in, it's going to help us determine how we market to them. Now, based on that, the next really step is how do we then message to them in a way that's going to catch their eye and actually look to push them to take some level of action, right? And really what that comes down to is what is our messaging going to be on those ads? The fourth step is once we've got them clicked on the ad, what value are we going to deliver them? If you are thinking about life insurance, you're a new parent, maybe you're not sure what type of life insurance you need or whether you need it at all or you're just overwhelmed. And so if that is the mind frame of our consumer, maybe what we want to be thinking about here is a guide or something that helps people really understand what decisions they should be making as they're thinking about their first life insurance purchase, right? So once you've clicked on our ad, what value are we delivering them? And then the final step is once you've given us some level of information, whether it's to set up a call, maybe you're going to come into my office, or maybe I'm just providing you content and you're providing your email for me to be able to get that. I'm really going to start to craft and think about what those future steps of my process looks like, right? Maybe it is a 5 email campaign drip that you get after you download my exclusive guide. And through that 5 step email drip, I'm reminding you or pulling out 5 helpful tips if you haven't had a chance to read the guide, which ultimately are leading to me getting that person on the phone so that I can have a conversation with them and ideally convert them into a customer, right? So the work doesn't stop at the ad, and the work definitely doesn't stop on the page that they see. You really have to continue to push and really start to think about what the rest of that customer experience is going to be. So I'll stop here just for a moment and pause in the event there are any questions. I know there's a lot of information in the last few slides, but wanted to give everybody a chance in the event there's a question that comes up. All right, great. Don't believe I see any questions, so we'll go ahead and keep going. So I wanted to talk a little bit about segmentation. I know I've mentioned it quite a few times. Maybe talk a little bit about what it actually is and why it's so important. So as I mentioned, good Facebook marketing campaigns begin with very targeted customer segmentation. So let's talk a little bit about what customer segmentation and customer segments are. Um, you know, very simply, they're a way for you to bucket similar looking consumers, right? So, with any type of marketing, what we really want to be thinking about is figuring out which customers should see what types of marketing campaigns because different sets of customers are going to have different needs, different requirements, different interests. The beauty of customer segmentation is that you can actually take individual consumers and oftentimes find patterns across large swaths of consumers, which then enable you to build what is a customer segment. Now, customer segments can actually be um, many different things, right? You can use a number of different factors to be able to bucket populations together. You could use demographic data. So I want everybody that is um, that is 30 to 40 in San Antonio. Just got a question from William. Will you demo putting a Facebook ad together? Yes, I will. Once we get through this material, I will jump over to the actual Facebook platform and walk everybody through how you put an actual ad together and how you do some of the segmentation. There are employment-based customer segments. There are behavior-based customer segments, but really think about it as any way that you can actually start to put customers in a bucket together. Now, Facebook gives you the ability to actually target those customers based on the segments you are going to create as you think about rolling out a Facebook campaign. And I will walk you through what that tool looks like and some of the kind of key um, tips to keep in mind as you build out customer segments. But before we jump over there, just very briefly, I want to talk about how a good Facebook strategy really starts with hypotheses and testing. So, with any sort of digital marketing, the key here is really going to be laying out your hypotheses and then continuously testing and looking at how those hypotheses are performing. So, I want to talk about what that really means, right? Every good digital marketer starts with a hypothesis framework. Because digital marketing is iterative, i.e., your work is really never done, you can always find ways to improve and tweak your digital marketing strategy, you really want to be mindful of starting with the hypothesis, understanding the implication for your targeting, and then how to really measure the success of that hypothesis. So the hypothesis is as simple as what do we think is going to happen based on our previous experience, right? And then the implication is how do we actually target based on that hypothesis? And then we want to measure success. So I've laid out a couple of example hypotheses. I think teachers will be interested in the Life Raft product because oftentimes they can be on high deductible health plans and they usually don't have a lot of liquid savings. So if they end up in the hospital and have a large out of pocket cost associated with it, they're going to feel some real pain. And as a result, will be interested. So when I go to Facebook, what I'm going to do is build a target based on individuals who are teachers and are based in our available states. And as I run that ad set, what I'm going to be looking at are three very simple metrics: cost per click. So, how much am I paying to actually get somebody to click on my ad? My cost per lead. So, I will define a lead as somebody whose email I've received. How much am I paying per email to get? And then cost per conversion. For everybody that came through that Facebook ad, how many people actually bought insurance and how much did I pay for that? Now, if you use a simple spreadsheet to lay this out, I promise you your digital marketing strategy will be head and shoulders above others because you'll be as thoughtful and as regimented as possible, which is really the key to success with any digital marketing, but particularly Facebook, because there are so many different things that you could do here. Great. I'll pause there again. Any questions on the materials before we jump over to Facebook Ad Manager and we walk through what the platform actually looks like? Okay, great. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and pull Ads Manager up here. Hopefully everybody can see the screen. I'm going to go back to the home before we jump into ads here. So with Facebook, there are two different types of accounts. There are business Facebook accounts. There are individual Facebook accounts. Your business account is typically going to be linked to your individual. So in order for you to be able to market on Facebook, you are going to have your own individual Facebook profile if you do not have one yet. What you'll see in Facebook Business Manager is there are business accounts, but also with your personal account, there will be certain accounts that will be connected to your individual Facebook account. So as you can see here, I have run some ad campaigns on my individual account, but we also have a company Life Raft account here, which is connected to my personal. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the Life Raft account and give you an overview of the platform. And then we'll go ahead and actually do an example here of putting an ad campaign live. Now, similar to a lot of other ad campaigns, what you'll see when you first log in is a number of your campaigns here, all kind of side by side. You'll see a summary of what is active and what is not active. As you can see here, I'll walk through what some of this information means quickly. Results are going to be you have the ability on the Facebook campaign or on the Facebook platform to define what success looks like for every single ad campaign that you run. So we have an ad campaign running right now to a landing page. We define success for that as clicks on our link to have people actually visit our site. As you can see here, we've had roughly 1,800 people actually click on the ad, which led them to our landing page. We've reached 64,000 people. And as you can see here, the ad has been shown just over 250,000 times. What this means is that on average, every person is seeing our ad about 4 times. which is relatively normal. Depending on how you actually target and set up your campaigns, that number might be a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but you're typically going to be looking at wanting to show your campaign between 2 to 7 times to every single individual. The more times you're actually showing it to them, the higher the probability is that your potential individual or your potential client is going to be clicking on your ad. Now, I want to mention here on this campaign right here, you'll see we have something called on Facebook leads. I'll walk you through what that means, but Facebook actually has the functionality built into it to collect certain information from individuals that are interested in your ad right on Facebook. So you're not pushing them to another site or to your site or a landing page, but rather you're just having them fill out a form on Facebook, and then Facebook is providing you with that information, whether it's their name and their phone number and their email address. You can set that up, but Facebook will send that to you directly. Now, here on this campaign, we've had 27 people actually complete that information, and provide their contact information looking for more. Now, the cost per result is simply the amount that you have spent on a campaign divided by the number of results that you've had. So as you can see here, we've spent $1,200 on our landing page test, and we've gotten a roughly 1,900 link clicks, which means we're paying 65 cents per click to our landing page. Now, on our landing page, we then are actually asking, this is for brokers, actually, new agents and brokers that we're recruiting. We then are asking for additional information. We have that. We have all of that information, so we can actually calculate how much we are paying to have a new agent appoint with us. Here, we're paying about $180 to actually have somebody fill out that information. So couple of things to keep in mind here. Number one, this is where you're going to see all of your key metrics that you're going to be able to use to compare different ads that you have running. And you are also going to be able to have some flexibility in terms of what success looks like for your ad campaigns. So let's go ahead I'm going to go into ads here. And I'm going to go ahead and actually create a new ad to show you all what that looks like. So I just hit create here on ads. And Facebook will actually walk us through the platform. So buying type, what this really means is how you plan to bid on paying for whatever success looks like on the Facebook platform. Now, I would recommend keeping it at auction. That's typically going to keep your cost as low as possible. Reach and frequency, what that's going to do is you're actually going to start to pay for how many times your ad is being shown. Rather than doing that, I oftentimes recommend you do auction because it's going to set your dollar cost at what success looks like. So if you want leads, you're going to pay for lead, and that's really going to enable you to optimize everything across the same cost. So we're going to keep it at auction. Now, there are a few different campaign objectives that you can do here. Awareness, brand awareness, or reach. Again, for me, as I think about building out an insurance practice, our real target here is to be able to build our lead list and to be able to find new customers. And so awareness typically isn't going to be the right campaign objective for us, because that's really going to be targeted on showing somebody an ad over and over and over again, and not necessarily pushing them to take a very specific or discrete action, which is what we want here, because really we want to be able to talk to our potential clients to be able to sell them insurance. I would say the area where you want to be focused is going to be consideration. Now, traffic, this could be a good option for you if you want them to go to a landing page. Engagement is going to be Facebook specific. So if you want likes on your Facebook page or post reactions, again, I would typically stay away from these to start off with, because really what we're trying to do is generate more leads. So really we want to stay in traffic or lead generation. I'll walk you through what lead generation looks like. And then we'll do a traffic option as well. So I'm just going to name my campaign here. We'll go ahead and do lead generation. Great. Now this is my campaign. With the structure of Facebook, you have campaigns, you have ad sets, and you have ads. For now, really what this does is it gives you an organizational set. A campaign, what I would think about here is campaign is going to be your broadest level of testing. So let's say I want to test employment-based Facebook marketing. That's what I would do in my campaign. And then each ad set would be a specific employment. And then within the ad set, if you wanted to test specific messages to teachers, you would create ads within your teacher ad set. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and do this. We're going to go ahead and do this at the campaign level. No special categories. As I mentioned, we're going to do auction, and we're looking to generate leads. Now, this is an interesting thing to really think about here. A/B testing. What this allows you to do is actually test and run two simultaneous messages potentially side by side. For now, go ahead and ignore it. As you get more familiar with the platform and you really start to think about testing different hypotheses, A/B testing is certainly something that you should think about. We're going to go ahead and keep campaign budget optimization off. For now, you're probably only going to be running one or two ad sets to get started with. And so you don't necessarily need campaign budget optimization to start with. This is usually useful when you're running kind of 15 to 20 different ads, and Facebook will use its algorithm to actually allocate your money in a more in an optimized way based on the results that you're receiving. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit next. Great. Now we're into the actual campaign builder for Facebook. Now, because we did leads, there are two ways to collect leads on Facebook. Depending on how you operate your business, one of these might be a better fit for you. One is instant forms. Now this, what it's going to do, and we'll have the chance to set this up, is it's actually going to show your lead. It's going to show your lead a form where you collect information from them, like their name and their phone number and their email address, and then gives you the ability to follow up with them. There are also calls which allow people to call you directly. And if they call you, they will become a lead, and Facebook will treat that like a conversion. Decide which one makes more sense for you. If you do a lot of your phone or your business through the phone, calls might be the right set here. If you'd rather be able to send emails and content and then follow up with phone calls, an instant form might be better for you. Now, you will need a page on Facebook to be able to promote. So make sure you set one up for your insurance practice prior to getting ready to do some campaigns here. Now, this is where you set your budget. In terms of recommendations, again, as I mentioned last week with Google AdWords, I think it's pretty similar with Facebook. You are going to have to ensure that you have a healthy enough daily budget to actually reach a good number of people. As you can see here right now with $20, there's a warning up here that says my ad set may get 0 leads. So we may have to think about upping our budget a little bit. I would say start with anything between $50 to $100. We're still getting this, but it'll go away in just a moment. You'll set your start date. Depending on what your budget is, you can also set an end date. Often when you're starting out, I recommend setting an end date of about a week. So you can really keep a close eye on how much money you're spending and how successful your Facebook campaign has been. Um, and then Facebook will run those ads continuously for a week, every single day. As you get results, what could end up occurring is if your ad is being shown and you're getting a lot of leads, you will hit your daily budget every day. Depending on the quality of those leads that are coming through, that may actually be a sign that you should increase your daily budget. If you are hitting your daily budget and you see that people are setting up appointments with you or they're reading your content, you may want to play with upping your budget because you might be able to get some more leads here. Now, this is where you're really able to do a lot of your targeting. Sorry, just give me 1 second. I'm going to figure out what's going on here because it may just be. Got it. Okay. Okay, no problem. Great. So we're gonna use Facebook's audience builder here to be able to target. So let's say I am using a similar hypothesis of teachers. So I actually am going to probably be looking at somebody that's 35, 30-ish to 50, let's say. So I'm going to go ahead and select 30 to 50. And I want all genders. Now I'm going to go into detailed targeting here. Now this is really where I'm able to start to build out what my segment is going to look like. So let's say, oh, and sorry, before we do that, up here is locations. So if you want to be targeted, you can actually go ahead and include, let's say we only want people in the state of Texas. So I'm going to go ahead and limit my reach to Texas. Great, which I've done here. So now I'm only going to be looking at folks in Texas that are 30 to 50 years old, all genders. And now this is where I'm going to start to be able to build out my interests or my employment-based demographics. So I want teachers. Now there's a few different types of information that's going to be in here. There are interests and there are usually employment-based targeting. Facebook, unfortunately, has made it a little bit harder to target based on very specific employment. However, there are ways around it. So because we're in Texas, I'm going to look for the Texas Teachers Association. Okay, they don't have one. So let's keep looking. Looks like we might have a question. Vicky, if you have a question, do you want to drop it in maybe to the Q&A? Let me know. So what I'm going to do is I see here the Association of Teachers and Lecturers. I think there's probably a good number of teachers in that group, so I'm going to add that. Thank you. So I can't seem to find it, but that's all right. We'll keep going. Now here we go. So education could be an interest. That may be a little too broad, but as you can see here, if I drop in teaching, primary education, teaching abroad, Masters of Arts in Teaching, and then there also are very specific job titles here. So I may also want to be able to target teaching assistant. So I'm going to drop that in. I think we're going to also want to look for, let's see if we do middle school teacher is a job title. I'm going to drop that in there. Now, as you build this out, and you can get as specific as you'd like, there's one thing to keep in mind here, which is right over here on your audience definition. So Facebook provides us pretty good information into how specific or how broad we're getting. You want to keep the um, your little target here in the green. What this is telling me is I've probably picked one or two things here that are going to really narrow our reach. My guess is it's going to be the Association of Teachers and Lecturers. As you can see here, there's only 2,700 people in here. And so I'm actually going to go ahead and get rid of that. And let's see, my audience should get a lot larger. So still a little bit specific. It might be due to my age here. Now we knew teachers are usually a little bit younger, so we'll expand that. Great. So that was really the age that was driving that. As you can see here, we've built out our audience. Now, again, I'm only going to use these two right now, but really spend some time looking into here, playing with it. Remember, you can be specific on job titles, interests, demographic information. This is really where a lot of your segmentation work is going to be done. Now, the next place really here is placements. Use automatic placements. Facebook's algorithm is really going to be able to optimize and be able to have your ad show up. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that. And then I'm going to leave my cost control off. What they're going to do is they are going to, Facebook as a platform with its algorithm is actually going to optimize for getting you the lowest cost lead subject to your daily budget. So really, unless you have a really good sense of how much you think you should be paying for certain leads, leave cost control open there. So once you've done that, you're just going to go ahead and click next. And this is when you are going to be brought to the page where you can actually start to build out your ad creative. And so your ad creative, there's a couple of different things you can do here. All right. Just give me one moment while it loads up. Great. Now, as a reminder, yep. Okay, great. So as a reminder, you have to have an identity, which is your business Facebook page. That is really what's going to show up here where it says sponsored. It's going to be from your page. Now, you have a couple of different things you can do with the ads here. You can do one image or video, or you can do images that scroll through. Typically, what I found is with Facebook, when you're looking at targeting individuals or even small businesses, just go with the single image. Now, what I would always recommend to do is with this image here, you actually want to include text on the image. So not a ton, but you're going to want to be able to create very simple pictures, whether it's like a scene here that you're seeing or creatives of individuals, but you're always going to want to create some sort of headline text that people can see. It's essentially free words that you're getting in there. And so make sure that your media includes some text. Now, in my example, it doesn't right now. This is just I believe a picture that came from our Facebook page as a background, but include some text on yours. Now, you're going to include some primary text. I'm going to go ahead and just include this from a previous ad. Now, your primary text is going to be what is at the top of your ad. So as you can see here, what you want to do here is really make this one punchy. So high deductible health plans can leave teachers with big bills. Let's say that's our line. Because we're focused on teachers, we're going to put the word teachers in our headline. or in our primary text. The headline is going to show up right below it. You know, with Life Raft, be protected. Protected against big bills. Great. That should show up. And then you actually have the option here to include some additional descriptions. So click easy and affordable coverage alongside your health plan. Click to get more information. Great. And rather than do sign up, because we're not actually have somebody buying right away, I'm going to go ahead and say learn more. That updates my button right here. Now, there are also two ways to actually collect the information for your form. There is an instant form, which someone would click on and they'll just quickly fill it out. There's also a chat that you can do through Facebook Messenger where it'll actually take them through and ask them their name. When they complete their name, it'll ask them the next question and collect that information for you. I actually have not tried automated chat, but that could be an interesting way for you to think about collecting info. Now, if you created a form on Facebook, it'll show up, but I'm going to go ahead and create a form to show you guys what that looks like. And again, remember that what you're doing here is this is a native form on Facebook that is going to be collecting some information. So you have the ability to use an ad. You can include a headline and say, tell us a little more about you. We'll send you detailed information on our plan if you give us some basic information. Okay. Now you can add your questions in here. So really think about what sort of information you're going to need to be able to follow up with your customers. We want someone's name. We want their email. Now, Facebook has a number of fields here that you can do. I do a lot of business, let's say through the phone. So I'm going to add phone number. And then you actually do have the ability to ask a custom question. And so maybe we want to ask a question about, do you currently have major medical? Yes or no. Great. Now, this is what my form looks like. Someone would answer, do you have major medical? Whoops. And then they'd see full name, email, phone number. There will be a privacy policy, and they'll say, thanks. So let's publish that. We'll be sending you some information on our plans. Great. Now we're going to hit publish. That gives us our lead form. Whoops. Should be at least two options. Oh, and I forgot to include a second option there. Great. Now, you are going to have to include a little privacy policy. It should work. And then a valid URL website. I totally forgot. This is our website. Great. That should work now. Great. So my form is now published. This is what my ad looks like. High deductible health plans can leave teachers with big bills. with LifeRaft, be protected against big bills. And my form, if someone clicks learn more, they'll be brought to my form. We didn't put any display, or excuse me. Okay, yep. Great. And now tracking, don't worry about this. This should be set up automatically for your Facebook. And then at this point, you would just hit publish, and that actually sets your Facebook campaign live. I'm not going to do this because this was just an example for us, but this is the exact process that you will follow to actually go into Facebook and set a campaign live. And with that, I know we've just got a couple of minutes left here, so I'm gonna stop there. Any questions that anybody has that I can help answer, whether it's on setting an ad campaign live, how to think about doing it, setting budgets, happy to help answer any questions. Yes, great question, Rigo. Rigo asked, are we going to have a copy of this recording? Yes, absolutely, we will. And that should be in our producer portal in about the next week. Vicky asked a question, do you have generic pre-approved ads? Great question, Vicky. We do not at this point, but it is certainly something that we can help design. I think rather than generic ads, what I would recommend is if you're interested in any sort of ad collateral or campaigns, reach out to me and we will actually help you get ads designed for you based on what you are looking for in terms of the consumers that you want to target and the messaging that you think you'd like to use. We'll actually go ahead and help you design those ads. So please feel free to reach out to us. Anise, can we get one-on-one to set up the initial ad for hands-on experience? Absolutely. Just again, reach out to me or my colleague Samantha, and we will go ahead and get a 30-minute Facebook consultation on the books with myself and Samantha, and we will help you go through that first ad setup and get it going for you. And Anise, during that call, we can also talk about ad collateral. The process that we'll follow with ad collateral that I think will be most useful for you all is if we can do a 30-minute call specifically on Facebook. If you help me understand what you're looking to achieve with your Facebook campaigns, and if you have an idea of segmentation, then we can actually help you design your ad campaign, and then we can also help you put it live. So please reach out to myself. My email is nimish@liferaft.co, or reach out to Samantha at liferaft.co. And we will go ahead and get you set up so that we can help out on Facebook. Great. Any other questions that anybody has? And I apologize if you put it in the chat. Oh, great. Okay. All right, wonderful. Doesn't look like we have any more questions. Thank you all for joining today. I hope you found our webinar informative and helpful. As I mentioned, please reach out to me or Samantha if you'd like some one-on-one assistance with Facebook. We are here to help and look forward to hearing from you all. Thank you guys for joining.